If you're new here, I'm Alex, and welcome to my channel Frank Fiction, where I talk about pretty much anything I want related to books and the book publishing industry. I should note that all content contained in this video was published by news articles like the BBC, People, USA Today, and where I heard it, Morning Brew. The rest of it was pulled from Facebook, where all of this nonsense began. Everything described is also alleged because I like to cover my ass. Susan Meachen is an indie romance author who's published more than a dozen novels and had a small but dedicated fan base. I personally am not a consumer of romance novels, and I had never heard of Meachen before this recent scandal came out, but I do know quite a bit about the book publishing industry, and I know that romance is one of the most oversaturated genres on the market, and that's for traditionally published authors. When you start getting into the territory of self-published authors, it gets far, far worse. And trying to promote yourself as a romance author in that industry is a hustle, one that Susan Meachen knew very well. Her dedication to trying to be a best-selling author earned her the respect and friendship of other fellow indie romance authors. She started a reading group on Facebook called The Ward and wanted to be recognized as a best-selling author as much as, well, any author does. But in September of 2020, her small Facebook group was shaken at the news that Susan had committed suicide in a post allegedly written by her daughter. Because it is a private Facebook group, I do not have access to all of the messages that were sent in it, only what the news groups and other members of the community who had access to those pages were able to send screenshots of. In that post made September of 2020, the daughter alleged that the reason that Susan committed suicide was because of the severe bullying that her mother had received by other authors in the community. Hearing this, the small Ward community ended up coming together to donate money to a GoFundMe and to a charity auction in order to cover Meachen's funeral costs. There was also a request from the daughter that someone in the community help her edit her mother's last book, as it was supposed to be a wedding gift to her. The post said, "Afternoon everyone, I and my family are looking for an editor. My mom had 2 in editing with someone and they are unable to edit the books. One book has been edited before it needs cleaning up, and the other is a novella she wrote for my wedding day. Any help would be great. Thank you for your time." So the next post that I have was from October 23rd of 2020, where her daughter allegedly stated, "Sorry, thought everyone on this page knew my mom passed away. Dead people don't post on social media. I've been on this account for a week now, finishing her last book, my wedding gift from her. If you'd like to talk to some of the people who have been helping me, let me know. We've asked for very little from everyone, but I'm asking that you leave Connie Ortiz alone. She has been a saint through this all, and she deserves some peace. Again, please be respectful." Now here's the link to her last book. 2 years passed and the account stayed active, but only barely, with the daughter promoting her mother's books in audiobook form and offering free codes to anybody who was interested. Some of the members of the Ward community who were closer with Meachen would even post on the Facebook page on the anniversary of her death saying that they hoped that she had found peace. And then some bullshit happened. Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023, a new post emerges on the Ward's page that sends not just the author community into a huge spiral, but also pretty much every major news source. I debated on how to do this a million times and still not sure if it's right or not. There's going to be tons of questions and lots of people leaving the group, I'd guess, but my family did what they thought was best for me, and I can't fault them for it. I almost died again at my own hand, and they had to go through all that hell again. Returning to the Ward doesn't mean much, but I'm in a good place now, and I'm hoping to write again. Let the fun begin." Now, obviously, after finding out the news that someone that you thought was dead for a couple years was actually alive, many people were outraged and concerned, one of whom was an author, Samantha Cole, who was Meachen's friend, who reached out to her immediately and asked, "What the hell is going on?" To which Meachen replied, "Nothing. I simply want my life back. My family was in a bad place and did what they thought was best for me." Cole has been very vocal with news sources and also on Facebook, stating that what Meachen did was unacceptable. She had spent years mourning the loss of someone that she thought was her friend. Cole herself used to work in law enforcement and watched 3 of her former colleagues commit suicide, so she took this news particularly hard. In addition to that, there was a member of the author community who accused Cole of being one of the people who bullied Meachen into committing suicide. She felt absolutely horrible because she thought that maybe part of it was her fault. Shortly after the return post, someone claiming to be Meachen reached out to the writer Michael Gallagher at Upstream Review in order to give an interview. Link in the description below. The article talked about Meachen's disappearance and the reasons she decided to return to the land of the living 2 years later. Gallagher has now retracted the interview portion of the article because Meachen apparently claimed that she wasn't the person that he spoke to, and since everything was conducted via messages and not on some sort of video conference, he had no way of confirming whether he was speaking to her or not. So he did take those out of the article, but left everything else, which I promise is still incredibly interesting and very damning. So I would recommend that you look it up if you're interested. And maybe you're a type of person like me who looked at this situation and immediately thought, well, if they weren't able to prove that Meachen is actually the one that they were talking to, maybe the person who took over her Facebook account was a hacker. Maybe she really is dead and there's someone out there who's just trying to cause a stir because they thought that it would be funny, because sick people like that do exist. I would like to commend you on the fact that you want to see the best in people and you want to believe that somebody wouldn't do something that atrocious as to just fake their death for a couple of years, but unfortunately, we're both wrong. She's alive. And how do we know that? TikTok. Meachen was on TikTok this whole time under her own name and no one noticed. And I guess if we're going to look at this from a rational standpoint, if you have a very small following and you have somebody either post on your behalf or you post yourself that you've committed suicide, chances are is people are not going to go and try to look you up to see if you exist on other social media platforms. And then the other thing too is that on her author's page, on Amazon, and also on the Facebook page itself in the chats, she doesn't ever post a photo of her face. I guess it stands to reason that nobody knew what she looked like, or very few people knew what she looked like, so she was just able to go on TikTok and post videos of her face under her own name, and no one caught it. She had to out herself for anybody to notice, which is just mind-boggling to me because I didn't know in this day and age with the technology that we have that anybody would be able to get away with that. But it just goes to show that I was wrong. I was a naive noodle, and I am not anymore. I am now a jaded noodle. Word of advice: if you want to take a break from social media because you either find it depressing or you're dealing with some shitty people, do what every other reasonable human being would do and just pause the account or delete it entirely. You don't have to pretend to be dead. She was saying that she was trying to escape bullying by saying, oh, I committed suicide. That's super fucked up. Of course, I don't need to tell you that because you're probably a well-balanced person. Why are we even having this conversation? Well, because people like her exist. Honestly, this is something that's out of fiction. Did you know in this day and age that somebody would be able to get away with that? Please tell me down below. Naturally, after people were able to confirm that Meachen really was alive, that's when the outrage started. And not by just Cole. Every other author who had donated money to, again, those GoFundMe accounts or the charity auction that was held, all of them felt like they were scammed or screwed out of their money. There was actually somebody on Facebook who confronted Meachen directly and said, okay, serious question. Are you going to pay back all the authors who donated to the charity auction for your funeral, or should we retain lawyers for fraud now? FYI, there was no fundraiser for me. There was a charity auction to pay for your funeral, to which I and many others donated to. Do not make this another lie. Now, I could find no evidence that a charity auction or any sort of GoFundMe page ever existed. And that's likely because if one ever did exist, it was probably deleted. And this author seems to be implying that the reason for that is Meachen wouldn't have wanted there to be any evidence that she took money from anyone. Now, again, I really can't say because I wasn't able to find any evidence of those pages. But one thing I will say is that there are many good people in the world. People who donate money to different funeral costs or medical bills, people who donate money so that you can pay your vet bills. That happens all the time. So if a page like that really did exist, I can pretty much guarantee that people would have donated money to it. And that's just fact. And if people did donate money and it was taken under false pretenses, that's fraud. A criminal offense for which someone can go to jail and or be sued. Several members of the community filed police reports against Meachen for fraud in the state of Tennessee. One particular person on her Facebook page took so much joy in it that they posted, "Also, I've done a little digging of my own, and what you did actually qualifies as fraud in your state. So after collecting some more screen caps, I've submitted proof of everything to your local government for charges to be filed against you in federal court. If you didn't like being shamed, I assure you that you're going to like federal prison even less. Have a great day, hun." Cold-blooded. Ooh! You have to really piss people off for them to talk about you that way or file police charges against you. I really want to follow this case, not just because it's something in the book industry, but because I am genuinely interested to see whether there will be any repercussions for her actions. Even just the fact that she faked her own death, like emotional damages to people. Do people have emails or any sort of proof, bank statements that they donated to her GoFundMe page that the police could track? Because if so, I think people are upset enough that they're willingly going to hand over that evidence to the police, if they haven't already. The biggest question, though, is why did she decide to come back 2 years later? One, why that time frame? Why 2 years? Was it for a specific reason? Was that planned out? Did she just get bored and feel like it? Unless Susan Meachen had absolutely no idea how people were going to react, I cannot understand why she would ever want to come back. She clearly was still living her life. She had detached herself from what she considered to be a very toxic author community. Why return? Well, many people, including Samantha Cole, believe that the reason was for book sales. So if the ultimate goal was to sell more books, to get notoriety, publicity, infamy even, the question then becomes, did it work? This was one of her rankings for Losing Him and Finding You in the Kindle store before all of the news blew up. Her ranking honestly was pretty terrible at 267,696th most popular. You can kind of think of this in terms of how often do people search your name in the Kindle store. So if you're a best-selling author, your ranking is going to be a lot higher because more people are searching for you, more people are buying your books, you're going to have more ratings. They're going to want to promote you because when you make money, Kindle makes money. It's that simple. So the lower ranking you are, the far less likely it is going to be that you're going to show up in the search results when somebody's trying to find a romance novel. And for a self-published author, that's pretty par for the course because traditionally published authors almost always do better than self-published authors. I'm not going to say always, but a lot of the time. So if she was at 267,696 most popular, immediately after the scandal, do you want to know what she moved up to? 82,677. Which, by the way, is still not great, but it's a hell of a lot better than in the high 200,000s. So in a way, I guess you could say it worked, but not for very long. The day that I'm filming this video is January 13th, so a week and 3 days later, and her ranking went back all the way to 201,827. It clearly didn't last very long. So did she get any more book sales during that time? The book only has 26 reviews. So 26 people bought it and decided that they felt strong enough about it to give it a rating. And it currently sits at 3 stars for the average rating, which honestly on Kindle is pretty bad because even books that are very divisive and aren't well liked by many people have over a 3-star rating. It's quite amazing to see just how many books that you personally might end up disliking that are at least a 4-star. And that's kind of the ironic part of all of this, is that if Meachen had just left well enough alone, her 3-star rating would be a hell of a lot higher. And you want to know how I know that? Lately, there has been an influx of people buying her book just so that they can give it a 1-star rating because of everything that happened with the scandal and to shit on her writing. If she had just disappeared, her books would probably be doing better than they are right now. So no, it didn't work. It completely backfired. And I haven't read any of these books. I'm not noting anything about the actual content. I don't intend to read them because honestly, it's not my thing and I don't have time for that. I want to read books that I know that I'm going to like by people who are ethical, or at least hopefully are. You might think, oh, well, Alex, if like some people give it a 3-star rating, who really cares? Well, that's how people decide what books they're going to read. If you go on Kindle and you have the option to choose between 2 books, it doesn't matter what genre, doesn't matter what authors, you've never heard of any of them, and you see that one of them is a 3-star and one of them is a 4.5, which one are you gonna read? Are you gonna read both? Or do you have limited funds and limited time, so you're going to pick one. You're probably going to pick the one that has a higher star rating. If you piss off people and they hear about you and they're the ones that go and start leaving all the ratings, they're going to screw you over for the people who've never heard about your scandal at all. People who don't care. They're just looking for something to read. But you know the people who will keep reading and rating you? The people who want to shit on your book. People are mean-spirited sometimes and they just really like to hate things. There's a reason that there's so many rant reviews on YouTube that people watch and it gets like millions of views. It's because people just want to know how bad something is. I don't know why. Is that morbid? It might be morbid. This is the part of the video when I really want to know what you guys think. Do you think that Meachen returned to the land of the living because she genuinely believed that she could come back with no consequences? Do you think she did it because she really wanted a fresh start and her intentions were pure? Or do you think that she did it for publicity's sake because she thought that maybe she would sell more books? Tell me what you think. I do know that I feel really bad for the people who were close with Meachen, because how do you ever trust someone on the internet ever again? Many of them probably lived in different parts of the country. They'd never met her in person or spoken to her on the phone. It was only ever via a chat online. And this kind of situation ends up demeaning the people who really are struggling and might end up actually committing suicide. Because what happens if you have a situation like this and then say another member of the author community goes and actually does commit suicide? Maybe nobody will believe them now because they might think, oh, well, just another person playing dead to get publicity. They're going to come back in a couple years, it's fine. And when you put it into that perspective, that's extremely damaging. I just hope the best for those people, and may their rage hold them and keep them warm at night. And on that note, I hope that you all found this video interesting. Have you heard of this news before? Did you even know who Susan Meachen was? I'm gonna guess that you probably didn't, but if you did, I would be really interested to hear about it. As always, I hope you all have a wonderful day or evening, that you all stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time.